welcome everyone to today's podcast. And
Okay.
my goodness, we are going to have a wonderful conversation with this amazing lady who is in the UK. Let me introduce to you Anna Sebastian. She is a leading hospitality consultant with over 15 years of experience in luxury members clubs and Forbes five-star hotels, including the Savoy and the Langham. And I must say, the Langham is one of my favorite hotels, Anna. It's just gorgeous. Recognized for her leadership
Oh,
and
good, good.
Recognized for her leadership and innovation, Anna has overseen bar programs that have earned places on the world's 50 best bar list and received multiple industry accolades, including Best Menu, International Team, and Bar Manager of the Year. In 2022, she founded Anna Sebastian Hospitality, better known as ASH, ASH, a consultancy specializing in food and beverage, commercial, and creative strategy. ASH delivers a comprehensive 360-degree approach that encompasses brand partnerships, market research, commercial tender agreements, menu development, PR, and marketing, also as advocacy, events, training, and crowd creation. I love that curation. That's gorgeous. The agency combines creativity, innovation, and commercial insight to elevate bar and beverage programs across the global hospitality sector. Alongside her consultancy work, Anna contributes to Class Magazine, founded Celebrate Her, which we're going to talk about a little bit later, a platform championing women in the drinks industry, and serves as a judge for numerous international awards. She is also a member of the Business Advisory Committee for Tales of the Cocktail and presents the annual Class Bar Magazine Awards in the UK. My goodness me, I know this conversation is going to be so interesting, Anna. Thank you so much for joining me. But tell me, how did you get into the hospitality industry and particularly the drinks space?
Of course, and thank you so much for the introduction, and thank you for having me on here today. I think with a lot of with a lot of people in the UK, it was never really the plan to be in this industry. I think like hospitality and like a lot of countries, really sadly, like in the UK, it's not really seen as a viable career, is not really something that people like encourage you to do.
Mm.
So, like with a lot of people, like my trajectory was completely different and I really fell into the industry. But after about, I don't know, a couple, I would say probably about 6 to 8 months, I really realized I was just like, this is where I'm meant to be.
Mm.
And it was just such a realization that I kind of just found my sort of purpose in what I was doing and helping people and serving people. And yeah, it was a really wonderful sort of moment. And I
Mm.
think being able to work somewhere like the Savoy, which again at the time I didn't really realize the importance of working somewhere
Yes.
like that.
Mm.
Um, but it really changed sort of my trajectory and my career and everything as well. So yeah, I was very lucky to work in places like that.
Mm. And it's interesting, Anna, because you're right. You know, when you're in the thick of things, particularly when it's your first job or that first time into an industry, you don't realize the actual opportunities that there are for you. So I think that's another thing I'd love to talk about, during our chat today is about the opportunities that there are for us women in the industry. So let's talk about Celebrate Her first off, because I'm really interested in hearing a little bit more about that. You've got here that you actually started that up as a casual conversation at the end of a shift. And today it's now a global movement across 22 countries. As you look towards, we're now here in early 2026. What are you most proud of? And what does this moment mean for the future of women in hospitality?
Off the back of a shift at the Langham.
Mm.
And we really sort of went, how do we like where are the women? Like
Mm.
how can we get more visibility for women? And that really sort of changed the trajectory of sort of management and leadership as well. So we really, really kind of dedicated a lot of time and thought process to giving making sure that we had a diverse and balanced team at the Langham. And we were
Mm.
really lucky. We had like an amazing CEO of Langham Hotels, and he could just kind of, when we kind of approached him about this idea, he was just like, well, you know what I want,
Mm.
but how you get there and make it happen. And I
Yeah.
was like, okay, cool. So we really went about like looking at hiring policies. We actually ended up having a 50-50 split of men and women in the team. We changed the way that uniforms, especially in five-star hotels, it was very much women had to wear dresses and heels, and we really
Mm,
changed that. And we were one of the first places that actually, and this wasn't that long ago, that
mm,
actually gave women the opportunity to wear as well. We were like, well, if you want to wear a dress, you can wear a dress. If you want
mm,
to wear trousers and a shirt and a waistcoat, you can wear that. And
mm.
we really, really looked at that. So we had a 50-50 split team, women behind the bar and on the floor, and that was amazing. But yeah, very much off the back of the shift, we sat around one night and we went, how do we give more visibility? We were like, well, why don't we just do an event? And why don't we call and get over all the incredible female bartenders that we know around the world
Mm,
and get them behind the bar for one night and showcase it? And we did this incredible event. And the support that we got from brands, from all the men that we knew, from everybody,
mm,
it just really, I would say it was the start of something, and it was the start of a little bit of a movement.
mm.
And then we just went on and we continued to do good things. And that really is, I guess, at the heart of what we do. We just want to do good things. And
Yes.
we worked with World's 50 Best. We launched their diversity program then in March 2020, obviously right before COVID, March the 8th. And then obviously in lockdown, we had time to kind of think like, what do we want to do with this? How do we
Mm.
take this? And but I think it goes back to like with anything, sometimes it's just starting and
Yes.
just doing things.
Mm.
So
Yeah. It's just taking that leap of faith, and I like what you're saying. It's mentoring, but it's not that forced mentoring. It's the conversations, it's the connections.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And
Which
it's just very much just, it doesn't have to be this, I think with mentorship, and sometimes it is, it's like that, that one-to-one thing, but sometimes
mm,
it is just, hey, do you have a moment? Can I run something by you? Can I
yes.
just check in and just, I really look, I based a lot of my career on connections and,
Mm,
meeting people and everything. And yeah, I think sometimes it is just that, and it's just
mm,
building your network and,
yes.
your personal sort of positioning as well.
No, and it is that connection, and us ladies do that so well, just having that chat in the hallway over a cup of tea, end of the shift, whatever it might be, and having that informal setting can really change your whole mindset about things instead of just sitting there going, well, we've got 30 minutes and we've got to talk about a particular topic. So, yeah, I love that
Yeah.
idea. We can just bring that little bit of inspiration into that moment. Recently, well, in 2025, there was the global evaluation of the drinks hospitality industry was a significant undertaking. What were some of those most surprising or perhaps confirming findings for you personally, Anna?
Yeah, so I think that survey, the reason behind why we wanted to do it
Mm,
was to give validation and data and statistics to our experiences
mm.
because I was in a way just sick of being on another panel, on another thing, and then just being like, well, what's the action?
Yes.
Like why are we having this conversation? And it's a lot of it is tick boxes, and don't get me wrong, tick boxes for me have been brilliant and it's got
Mm,
visibility and all this, but I was just very much, well, where is this going? What is this doing? So we did this
mm,
survey. We actually partnered with CGA, which is a leading data company, and Alara Global, which is this incredible training platform that's
mm.
actually based in Sydney as well.
Yes.
And we all kind of came together. We were just like, well, we need this data. Anyway, we did a survey, and I think a lot of it, I was expecting a lot of it to be focused on equality and diversity and inclusion. And actually, what really came out of it, the top three things that mattered to people was, well, one was pay,
Mm.
obviously being paid, which in different, different regions have different. In Australia and New York, it's very different, for example, to how things work in London.
Right.
It's seen as a proper industry, and bartenders can be earning $200 or something, whereas like $200,000, whereas like in London, that's not going to happen.
Yes.
Um, So that was one big thing. The second most important thing was mental health. So that
Mm,
was huge. Um, and it was people's sort of happiness and people's sort of well-being, but not well-being in like I'm drinking less
mm,
or any of these buzzwords. It was more like, how do I make the day-to-day work?
yes.
And then the third thing was really about that sort of training, but not as in how do I make a drink? It was like, how do I deal with these situations? How do I deal with it if this happens? Um, and that was really, really interesting. And actually, from that, we were able to then take all of that information and turn our shared experiences into something that's tangible that we could then change and improve on in the industry.
Yes, yeah. And it just takes those, once again, those conversations to have a discussion and then share those ideas. Training and
Mm.
development, you've talked about, came through loud and clear as one of those essentials for retention. And we know, both here in Australia, and as I'm sure it is globally, it's attracting the staff members, but it's actually retaining them. How do we go about that? Especially for professionals with that 4 to 10 years experience. What steps do you believe leaders in the hospitality industry should be taking now to turn this insight into sustainable action in 2026? Because it's key. How do we keep these people?
For sure. And I
Mm,
think the hospitality industry, it really needs to focus on not just the days, but also the decades,
mm,
what is happening in the next however long. And I think this is really, really key. Is like, how are we going to keep people within the industry? So when we're attracting people, is then what are the next steps? And I think it's really important to look at the longevity of people
mm,
as well. And that is going to come down to things like pay. It's going to come down to things like training. It's going to come down to things like, mental health and mental well-being, and really making sure that people are set up to do the job and have the
mm,
resources as well, and not just sitting on a panel and not just, doing all the tick boxes.
mm. Do you think flexibility is so important now more than it has ever been because, not just for Gen Zs, but across all generations because of the different commitments that they have. And not everybody wants to work every single weekend or every public holiday. It's money is important. Yes, we all need to be paid, but that key driver where in perhaps, in the past, CEOs or business owners have thought, oh, well, everybody will want to work on a Sunday, or everybody will want to work on a public holiday. No, they're choosing and well-being for many of them, that well-being aspect, that mental health, or just time by themselves or with their family or friends. Do you think that's a key point, having that flexibility now?
Uh, I do. I would also say that this is the nature of the industry.
Yes.
We work in an
Mm,
industry that requires you to work weekends, to work
mm.
late.
Yes, that's true.
And I don't think we can get away with that. That is
No.
hospitality.
Mm,
What I will say is, like, if you are entering the industry, you have to be prepared for that. And
mm,
when we talk about flexibility, sure, flexibility is nice, but is that a reality? So I think a
mm.
lot of it is on the person joining. And I think
Yes.
you have to, if you are joining, you need to be committed. And, I worked, nearly 15 years in the hospitality industry. And I worked nights pretty
Mm,
much every single night. And I worked weekends. And, that's what I did.
mm,
And I didn't complain about it because I chose to do that.
mm.
So I think you do have to do that. What we can do is try and make that a little bit more enjoyable,
Yes.
and we can make it more fun, and we can make it safer.
Mm,
So are you able to get your team home at night in an Uber,
mm.
or so on and so forth? Can that be part of your business plan? So flexibility is great, but I don't like every industry that, is a bit of a service, whether you're in the military, whether you're, working in a hair salon, whether you're in hospitality, it requires late nights and it requires
Yes.
weekends and all of this.
Mm,
So I, if you're choosing to be in this industry, that is what you have to do.
mm. It's funny though, and I'm sure you've come across it where you've hired somebody and they've gone through, you understand you have to work weekends and they'll work a couple of weeks and then they'll go, oh, I didn't realize it was going to be every weekend or and then they start just checking out. And it's so disappointing because you're right. This is what the industry is about. It's 24 hours a
Mm.
day, 7 day a week, every day of the year, and you can have fun and enjoy it, but it's understanding, well, this is what it is. You have to be there for the people, and you cannot do this from your home. You have to be there at the bar.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. It
Mm.
needs, you need to be there, and it is about showing up, and this is life,
Yeah, it
you
is.
know.
It is.
Like
Yeah.
if you don't want this life, choose something else.
Yes, yes,
No,
yeah.
I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm going to be really real and really honest,
Mm.
change it. Don't
Yes.
work here,
Yeah. Do
you
something
know,
else. Find
do
something
something else.
else.
Yeah.
Work in a bank or somewhere quiet or being able to sit all the time. Mental health and well-being remain those urgent concerns globally, and I know that was one of those things that you talked about, certainly came out from that survey. How can operators move from awareness to really true accountability? Because we talk about it a lot. I feel that in the last few years, it's gone more than just talking. We've got actually people putting actions in place and having those conversations on the floor. What kinds of well-being infrastructure have you seen actually work in hospitality settings, Anna? Because I think we can have all these ideals, but what actually works when it comes down to the front line?
I think it's really looking, I always say to people, like, when you understand what people value, then you can have impact.
Mm,
And I think that's really key. I think things you've got to make, for example, safety and well-being part of your business plan.
mm,
That has to be, just as you would have budget for stock and OS&E and
mm,
your opening costs. This should be part of your opening costs. So your consideration on how people are going to get home at night, especially women, especially in cities, not all cities, but especially somewhere like London,
mm,
where it's not particularly safe for women to go home on their
mm.
own. Um, that has to be a consideration. It has to be part of an opening cost.
Yes.
So I would say those sorts of things. I don't particularly see, one standout place doing great things. And, unfortunately, this is going to fall on your bigger hospitality groups
Mm,
and hotel chains where actually they do make a difference and the impact of their actions will not just inspire, but from a practical side of things, help other people. So there's a lot of work to do for sure.
yes. Yeah. I don't think it's ever going to stop. I think we'll always continue that journey, as
Mm.
things change. Workplace safety and equity were also highlighted, particularly, the shocking statistic that 70% of reported incidents are never resolved. And that's a really high stat. What are some practical, immediate changes you believe operators can implement to make the venues safer and more inclusive for women and as well as all team members?
Yeah, I think it's really about just like having that process and that critical part. I always say to people like plan for things, plan for when things go wrong because
Yes.
we all know how to deal with things when they go right. It's a nice
Mm,
celebration and everything. But what happens when something goes wrong? And is there a process? Is there a critical path that people follow to report something? Because you're taught how to make a drink, you're taught how to seat a
mm,
guest, you're taught about all these great standards, but then are you taught like what happens when a guest, does something or supplier does something or,
mm,
how do you report something? What are the local laws? What are the differences between sexual harassment and sexual assault? I
mm.
guarantee if you ask any bartender or anybody really working in the industry, everybody would be like, oh, well, it's kind of this. I'm like, okay, but is that the legal definition or is that what you
Yes.
think?
Mm,
Let's really go back to the basics. So I think it's very much just you've got to have those conversations and you've got to have things in place that are consistent,
mm,
and that is, has, where people will know that if they do report something, like
mm.
it will be resolved.
Mm. So then, who do you think is the responsible for that? I think, they may start in an organization. It could perhaps be in the employee handbook. The people and culture manager, may have said it during the interview. But who actually drives that health and well-being within the workplace?
I mean, just it falls on the business.
Mm,
So if you are the owner of the business, if you're running it, like it's your responsibility.
mm.
People don't like responsibility these days.
No.
Like nobody really wants to take it. I'm just like, someone has to take responsibility.
Mm,
Somebody has to. And it doesn't matter, to be honest, I don't think it really matters who that is, but somebody has to. And I think it's not it's not fun. It's not like a nice job taking responsibility,
no.
but somebody has to. And I
Mm,
think that's what we did with Celebrate Her. That's what I do with my business. It's like we all have the ability to have a choice. It's
yeah.
so rare
Mm,
that we're sitting here in a developed country with choice.
mm,
And we have a choice about how we wake up every day, how we
mm,
act, how we talk to people, how we run a business, and how we do things. And everybody knows deep down when it's right and when it isn't right.
mm.
Some people ignore it and some people don't. But
Yes.
you have to take responsibility.
Mm. And I think that's key. It's the business owner, yes, or the senior manager, but it comes down to that, that shift manager, who's on duty that night, the frontline team members, at the bar or in the
Mm,
dining area, knowing that they've got the support from that person, because a lot of them don't know how to handle it themselves, do they? It can
mm.
be quite overwhelming because many we find that are in the industry, it could be their first job.
Yeah.
So they need to know that they've got that support from the people that are around them, not just from the owner. Yeah, it's
A
who's
hundred
there.
percent.
Mm,
I mean, look, I've put my cards on the table and I've walked away from places before and I've said I've said to the owners of the business, I've went, well, you have a choice. It's either if you do this, then I walk. And these are global hotel companies and these are
mm,
individual businesses. Again, we have a choice.
mm.
And you know what? Like, everyone's like, well, I don't want to lose my job. Okay, but there's going to be another job.
Yes, yes,
Like,
yeah.
I've never experienced a moment where I've gone, well, what about my job? What
Mm,
about this? Because
mm.
there's always going to be another one. And I think you have to, and this is, I talk a lot about this in general. This goes back to what is your purpose?
Yes.
And what is, because if your job doesn't align with what I always say is like your guiding star,
Mm,
that your guiding star is going to take you through every single job, every single relationship, every
mm,
single business partner, whatever. And if you stay true to that, and you sure that will change over the years as you grow up and develop and
mm,
everything. Um, but that's going to say, that's going to be what is going to navigate you through all of these difficult situations.
mm. Yeah, very much so. It's those values. I think, a lot of people will, they perhaps sell out those values, or they don't look at the choices. They feel that everybody else is controlling them. And you're right, Anna. Like, we all have a choice. We can't control how people react, but it's how we can control ourselves and staying
Mm,
true to our values. Because once we I suppose, for you and I, we've got well-established businesses, and some people listening might think, oh, well, it's very easy for you to say that, but, I've got to get food on the table. But I know when I've been in situations, it sounds like you've been in the same, Anna, that you've chosen not to work in particular organizations, or I've chosen not to work with particular people who wanted to work with me, in clients and situations, because it's just been against my values, or I just don't feel, that intuition in the tummy, so to speak. This is not the right way for me. And you're right, another job comes up or another client turns up, because when you shut that door on that person, another one opens, and you're allowing that to
yeah,
open because you're making that choice, aren't you?
yeah, 100%. And I think, I mean, to your point about, yeah, but I still have to get food on the table. I still
Yes.
have to pay people.
Mm,
You know, my business could be over tomorrow.
mm,
It's we're the same. Like
mm,
what I will say is having principles and having, staying true to that can be expensive.
Mm,
You've got to, we've walked away from clients before and we've trusted our instinct and our gut. And sure, yeah, it's cost us hundreds of thousands of pounds.
mm,
That's frustrating when you want to grow a business and you want to hire somebody else and you can't
mm.
because of XYZ's happened and so on and so forth. But again, it's down to choice. What do you want to
Yes.
do?
Mm,
You want to be a good person or you don't.
mm.
I think we overcomplicate it, and I think actually, again, come back to what your purpose is.
Yes. Yeah. As my father used to say, you can lie straight in bed.
Mm.
You can go to bed and you know that what the choices that you've made are your choices, and therefore, your values, whatever it might be, but you can lay straight in bed. And I think it's a very old-fashioned saying, but it's very true, and it's the choices that you make. You mentioned about Celebrate Her, and I know, that is a very big organization, but there's been an offshoot from that now because called Celebrate Mothers, which I'd love to hear a little bit more about that. That's the first network of its kind for mothers in the drink industry. Because it's true, we do continue working on. What inspired its creation, and what do you hope it will change for women navigating both motherhood and the hospitality career? Because there may be some that just go, well, how can they actually work together? And my idea is, well, why can't they?
Yeah, I think, look, I'm not a mother, and maybe I will be, maybe I won't be at some point. But yeah, it was really off the back of, again, the feedback that we got from people within the community as well.
Mm,
Um, and it was it was about kind of bringing people together, bringing people with shared experiences, and just really looking like, is this something that we can change? I
mm,
mean, I still don't know. Um, I think it's hard to be a mother, and I think it's really I think it's hard to have a career.
mm,
Both can both work at the same time. Yes, maybe, but there will be sacrifice.
mm,
I think it's naive for people to think that there won't be sacrifice on both parts. Um, but there will be, and it's just trying to find how do we find the best possible solution. And maybe through that community, can we find people that have like-minded experiences and shared
mm.
experiences and everything as well?
Yes, yeah. And I think, a lot of that time it's just sharing the thoughts or concerns that we may have. I know when I started my company 32 years ago, I had two very small children and I had no choice. I found myself by myself and I had these two little babies and I had to start a business. I had to, start bringing in money and it was that choice that I made. Therefore, we have to think that things change over time, doesn't it? With people. So, understanding that people are looking for that a different purpose. I think you're right. Anna, you're talking, well, what is that purpose? Does that purpose change over time as well? What do you think?
Yeah, I think purpose does change. I think that's okay for things to
Mm,
change. Um, I think, look, one of my best friends, she's a single mother of two, and like, going back almost 10, 12 years ago now, very similar. So she had no choice.
mm,
And it's not fair. Of course it isn't fair.
mm.
But again, we've got to keep moving and we've got to keep going and
Yes.
we can't just
Mm,
talk about it. We've got to have action. And I think through her sort of changes and what she did, she was able to pave the path. And how we work as a business now, we work very much, and it wasn't really an active decision. We just started really working like what I'm going to call like micro shifts.
mm,
And these were, I'm sure we're not an operational business, but the thing that stands us apart is like we are available 24/7. You will get a reply within 12 hours of working
right.
with us.
Mm,
And that's where we stand out.
mm,
But what it has done is given people the ability to kind of work wherever they want in the world,
mm,
to have a life, to do whatever they want, whether it's
mm,
have kids or not have kids, or, just be single and live the best life,
mm,
which is also needs, we talk about mothers in the industry, but we should also talk about single people in the industry
mm.
and how what they need to live their lives, because it's not that also is, you know, I was always the last one, for example, that got holiday approved or
Yes.
Christmas off.
Mm,
And it was always like, well, I have kids. And I'm like, okay, cool. Well, what about me?
mm, mm.
And so it's, whilst I support everybody, there also needs to be, you know, that support for people that may be single, that may want to find, a partner, that
Mm.
may want to have kids. Okay, well, what about the time for them to go and do that?
Yes.
So, yeah,
Mm. But even just for the time they may have aging parents, or they deserve time off. They deserve holidays. And I know I've got three much older brothers, and my middle brother was like that. He wasn't married. Well, he isn't married. He doesn't have children. And the business that he was in, he would work every weekend because they said, "Well, you're not married. You don't have children." And you're thinking, "Yeah, but I still have a life." And I think that's the thing. You've got to speak up and say,
mm,
well, I deserve this time off just as much as everybody else does, and making sure they're aware of what your choices are. You choose to work with a
yeah,
company that aligns with your values, but also understands what you're seeking. From
yeah,
roundtables and global seminars to local events and safe space conversations, Celebrate Her has created meaningful ways to connect women around the world. What role do these gatherings play in driving real industry transformation? And I'd love you to share, Anna, how do, the listeners, they're all from around the world that listen to my podcast, how do they actually know and find out, and how could they perhaps even join Celebrate Her if it was something they'd be interested in?
yeah. You know what? I think the meetups really are what grounds, I think, the community. We do them all over the world. We self-fund a lot of this as well. So
Mm,
we never charge people to attend. What we really want is that community element to shine through in real life. And I think that real life connections, those conversations that we have are so key. I'm really putting emphasis on that sort of like in real life, participation and everything as well. We work with a lot of brands to bring it to life. We either self-fund it, we do them at key, whether it's like bar shows or key events happening around the world.
mhm.
Obviously, International Women's Day, around March is obviously a very, very busy time, like a
Yes.
lot of people want to work with us. Um, but we really put a lot of effort into this and how that looks like. And
Mm,
we've moved from doing like a lot of panel discussions in the past to then just really sitting around a table and being next to somebody that you might not necessarily have met before, and
mm.
having those conversations. And I think the powerful thing is that we all have something to give
Yes.
to, no matter what level of your career you are at,
Mm,
you all everybody has something to give.
mm,
From sort of joining, obviously the community, anyone can join,
mm.
it's we're for women in the hospitality industry. That's really the only sort of requirements.
Yes.
And anyone can really join. And it's like it's an incredible community. And you take it, and I always say to everybody, like it's everybody's community. It's
Mm,
not mine. I
yes.
happen to be the facilitator, and
Mm.
that's really it.
Mm, beautiful. Well, look, I'll certainly putting links in the show notes so people can certainly learn more about Celebrate Her and even, celebrate mothers. So thank you for that. As we come to an end, my final question is, as we set our sights, here we are already halfway, it feels like halfway through the year, but we're just starting in 2026, but it's time just seems to be
Mm.
moving so fast, Anna. What is your message to hospitality leaders and to women in the industry about what's possible when we center community, courage, and care in how we lead?
I think it is. I think the big message is like we can all make a difference, no matter
Mm,
who we are.
yes.
So, and I think that's really important to know that. I think we all have a choice to make a decision.
Mm,
And sometimes I think it is just about making the decision. Nobody's ready. Like the biggest myth that, everyone knows what they're doing, and it's like nobody knows what they're doing. So I just think it's better to do it and just take that chance and take that opportunity because I think we can all make a difference.
Yes, yeah, we certainly can. Look, thank you so much, Anna. I really appreciated this conversation. I'm sure my listeners would agree. Is there something that I haven't asked you that you would like to add before we finish off?
No, honestly, you've been a wonderful host, so thank you so much. And I just really think it's just going back to that point about taking that opportunity. We all have a choice and we
Yes.
can all make a difference.
We certainly can. And we make a difference by supporting each other. And that's what we need to do as women, both
Mm.
in our local community as well as globally. So thank you so much for joining me.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it a lot.